You're listening to the Rainmaking Podcast. Hosted by high-stakes headhunter, author, and professional speaker, Scott Love.
You're listening to the Rainmaking Podcast, and my name is Scott Love. Thanks for joining me on the show. Our guest today is Andy Buyting. He's a professional speaker, author, coach in the areas of marketing and sales development. He's the author of the book, Double Sales, Zero Salespeople, and I read that book and I'd highly recommend it. Andy is going to talk with us today about researching the competition. I think you're going to get some great ideas into a concept that just isn't new, but a lot of people don't think that way anymore. So this is something that's going to help you regardless of what industry you work in. As always, this show is sponsored by Leopard Solutions, legal intelligence suite of products, Firmscape, and Leopard BI. Push ahead of the pack with the power of Leopard. And now here's my conversation with Andy Buyting. Thanks for listening. Hey, this is Scott Love with the Rainmaking Podcast. Our special guest today is Andy Buyting, and our topic is researching the competition. Andy, thank you for joining me on the Rainmaking Podcast today.
I'm excited to be here.
I am too. I've read your book called Double Sales, Zero Salespeople. I'm a fan. There's some really innovative ideas in this. Ideas that, wow, I'd never thought about that. I mean, really wow. I'd highly recommend it to everybody listening. We'll put the link for the book in the show notes, but let's get right to the content, which is researching the competition. On page 63 of your book, you talk about that, and that was really interesting to me. So tell me, where do we start? Where should somebody who's a professional services rainmaker, whether they own a small firm or they're within a big firm, where should they start in terms of researching the competition?
Well, I'll tell you, so when we start to work with a new client partner on a digital program, one of the things that we always do is we do a competitive analysis.
Mm-hmm.
And what we look at is we always ask, okay, we want your URL, your website. We'll research that like a lot of people do, and that's very common. But the other thing we'll ask is give us the name of who are your two competitors that you run into most often. Mm-hmm. So your two direct competitors that you run into most often. And then give me two what you consider to be aspirational competitors, meaning people that are in your industry that you feel are doing a really good job with their marketing. And I want to know who they are, from your opinion, who you aspire to be someday in your marketing. And then what we do is we actually do a competitive analysis where we leverage, and as an agency, we leverage SEMrush, SEMrush.com, and we leverage their platform. It's not inexpensive. It's quite expensive to do, but as an agency, we can do it for a number of our client partners and it works out well. And what we do is we analyze you and those four other companies. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting, because first of all, we analyze your own website and we figure out what are the keywords or the keyword phrases that are driving traffic to your website. What does your traffic look like? What's bringing people to your website? What are the branded and the non-branded keywords? And we're more interested in the non-branded, meaning if I'm running as Andy Buyting, I'm running Andy Buyting law agent firm, somebody who searches my name, my company's name specifically, that's a branded search, right?
Okay, good.
But the ones that are searching law firm near me or law firm in St. Louis or whatever, those are non-branded searches.
Okay.
And we want to understand, what does the traffic look like going to your website? And then we do the same thing for your competitors. And we want to know what's the volume of traffic that goes to your competitors. And you can do that. A platform like SEMrush will give you that insight.
Interesting.
And we look at your aspirational competitors as well as your direct ones. And we find out for you how many people go to their website, how many people find them on Google or other search engines, and what brings people to their websites, which is always really fascinating.
So let me ask you this, if I could interrupt you for a second. So when you say, I wanted to get clarity, aspirational competitor, is that kind of like if I open up a single site hamburger restaurant and my aspirational competitor is McDonald's? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it could be. We prefer to look at from an aspirational competitor instead of a large multinational or really large firm. what is the one firm in your area that is doing really well? And I'll give you an example. We do a lot of work with law firms. We do a lot of work with insurance agencies. And we had an insurance agency that said, okay, the two we run into most often is ABC Corp and XYZ Company. However, in our marketplace, in our state, this company seems to nail it. I see them all over social media. They're getting a lot of traction. I see their ads online. They just seem to really know what they're doing. And when we research that competitor, we see, actually, well, one thing was we found all kinds of different findings, but this one that I'm thinking of said, here's what the traffic is. And that's really interesting. I knew they were good. I didn't know they were that good because the traffic that went to their website was like much, much larger than this client of ours expected. So I'd rather have an aspirational competitor being somebody that is a little bit more relatable. So maybe it's not McDonald's.
Yep.
Maybe it's the local hamburger shop at one place, but the parking lot is always packed. Or it's that small regional chain that has 8 restaurants or something like that. I'd rather do that than like a McDonald's.
That makes sense.
You're not going to learn a lot there.
And so you're looking for using SEMrush, SEMrush. You're able to see what traffic is going to our site, what traffic is going to our competitors, how many, and what brings people to them. Is that right?
That's correct. And then SEMrush will give you insight into the keyword phrases as well. And we filter out what's the percentage of all the traffic that goes to their website. Maybe, I don't make the math easy. There's 1,000 people that go to their website. How many of them are organics or are branded searches, and how many of them are non-branded searches? And the non-branded searches is what we really want to focus on, because if somebody's searching Scott Love Law Firm, even though you might be a competitor of mine, I'm not going to intervene, or it's going to be hard for me to intercept the person that's looking for you directly. But if people are looking for commercial law in my marketplace and they're going to your website, I want to know why they're going to your website and not mine.
Got it.
And I figured that out. And then we use a combination of, it's very common for our marketing specialists, our digital marketing specialists, to have SEMrush up on one screen and Google Ad Planner on another. And they're constantly looking back and forth and finding those opportunities where people are going to maybe a competitor's website with a keyword phrase that does not have a lot of competition.
Yeah.
And we start to dig into that, because in the insurance space, searching commercial insurance in my area might garner a lot of searches, but it might be highly competitive. I tell you, in pretty near every market, it is very competitive. So it's very expensive to get those clicks. But if you start ratcheting it down, and then we start asking, okay, what are the areas that you specialize in? Well, I specialize in small business, commercial law, or I specialize in traffic violations, or thinking about law firms, or with insurance. I remember one of our client partners saying, we do a lot with apartment buildings, multi-residential real estate insurance. Okay, let's look at that. And then we start to figure out where are those opportunities in there. And I remember this one, she said, let's look at multi-residential real estate insurance. So we looked at that. So there's not a lot of people in your market that search for that. Okay, well, how about, and we went through different terms: apartment insurance, apartment building insurance, land, all these different things. And what we found was, you know what? There's a significant number of people that are searching for landlord insurance. And she said, oh, we don't use that term. Yeah, but your customers do.
Oh, that's interesting.
And there was nobody competing for landlord insurance. So we were able to buy all those clicks very easily, or the vast majority of them very easily, for a very small budget. So that's one example. Another one, a fellow in Minnesota said, we do a lot of contractor insurance. So we looked at contractor, we looked at development, we looked at building insurance. But if you searched carpentry insurance, it was actually searched a fair bit. Nobody was competing for it. So we went in and bought all those clicks, or a vast majority of them.
And now let me ask you this. When you say we buy those clicks, tell me what that means.
So when we buy those clicks, what we do, some social media pay-per-click, but what we specialize in is Google pay-per-click. Mm-hmm. When we're talking with a potential client partner to start off with, we want to understand their marketplace, how their customers are reaching them and finding them. And most importantly, like we need to be able to draw a map in our own minds to say that, okay, people where we can really make a difference and what we specialize in is when your customers are going to the internet to do some research of some sort because they're looking for a solution to a problem they already have. And what that means is when people are going online to search, still, with ChatGPT and everything else going on, Google is by far the number one search engine. So we want to find, we can really help, and where there's real opportunity is when your potential customer is going online, or a segment of your customer base is going online to find a solution. They're searching for a solution to a problem they already have. So you don't have to invent a problem. It's a whole lot easier to sell someone if they already have a problem, if you can be positioned as the potential solution. So when we buy clicks, we're using Google Ads to put your website at the top.
That's great.
And
wow.
that only works when there's not a lot of competition there, because you can buy ads to search anything. But if we can buy a keyword phrase of carpenter insurance that nobody else is doing, we can guarantee you'll be the first one that'll be seen, probably the only sponsored ad. And it's still amazing how many people, a lot of people will still just click whatever comes up at the top on Google, and you can really increase traffic quickly to your website if you're with that type of a strategy.
That's great. What do you think the pitfalls are professional service providers will face if they try to do this? What are the mistakes they really need to try to avoid as they're trying to research the competition?
As they're trying to research the competition, I would say not looking at it through different angles. Like we look at it and no holds barred. If you had carte blanche, like how would you look at this and attack this and try to, because our goal is to get traffic that would otherwise maybe land on your website onto ours, right? Onto a competitor's website, onto our clients. And we look at it from different angles. So we even go so far, and this works actually quite well. A lot of people don't necessarily agree or like the strategy, but it does work, is that we'll buy, for our client partners, we'll buy their competitors' names as a keyword strategy.
Oh, wow.
So even ourselves in our own company, I don't mind saying that a lot of our keywords that we are buying are actually the names of our competitors. So we'll actually rank higher, because that's another thing. Whatever you do, make sure you're buying your own keywords. Or somebody Googles Tulip Media, we want to rank above a competitor. But it's amazing how many people don't do that. So, N2 Publishing is a competitor of ours. We buy that keyword. So you Google that, we'll actually appear higher than them.
So tell me this then, when you say buy that keyword, what does that mean exactly?
So that means using Google Ads, you set a budget, and Google Ads actually they'll help you navigate through the complexities, but because it is quite complex, but they'll help you understand and how to, you put in keywords or keyword phrases that you want to purchase with a budget beside each one, or a budget as a whole. There's different ways you can do it. But when you're leveraging Google Ads, that's where you put in the keywords, the specific keywords that you want to go after. And the goal, so this is a popular mistake that's done, it's a common mistake, is that the goal is not to buy the most popular keywords. I'm going to buy commercial insurance because it has, 1,000 searches a month, versus carpenter insurance, which only has 40 searches a month. That's tempting to do. But if two things will happen, the more common, the more popular the keyword, the higher the competition, which means you're paying more per click, is the first one. And secondly, you're probably being ranked there with 3 or 4 others. And there very well could be a multinational company in there or two that have deeper pockets, that are putting up a bigger daily budget and so on. So out of the 3 ads, you're going to be ranked number 3. You will appear, but you'll be ranked number 3. The other 2 will get, and you'll pay a lot per click, and you won't get as many clicks as you hope. And the ones that you do get, you'll chew up your budget. with them.
Yeah. So you're trying to get creative on this. You're trying to find that keyword that nobody else has that you can get 30 cents on the dollar compared to the other ones.
Yeah.
Kind of game it, right?
Yeah. And sometimes it's, Scott, it's not 30 cents on the dollar, it's 2 cents on the dollar. It's really, really cheap if you get creative in how you do that.
Give me an example. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but give me an example of a company you worked with where you went through this and you were able to find this word, and what were the results from that?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, one company we work with is a manufacturing company, and they're kind of a poster child, and it's worked really well. They came to us during COVID because all of a sudden they lost all their trade shows, all the ways that all the conventions shut down, every way that they were able to meet potential new customers. Now, this is a manufacturing company that manufactures fire trucks.
Yeah.
So if you can imagine, their average sale is $750,000. That's the average size sale. So they're big contracts. And when we started working with them, we found out we actually took a very different strategy where we said, you put your mind in so number one step you need to do is you have to put yourself in the shoes of your potential client. So think about someone who's buying your law service or your insurance service, or in this case, manufacturing. It's a fire chief. They focus mainly on rural fire stations. And it's a fire chief that is managing 2 trucks. Every truck lasts for about 10 years. 20 years. So they're buying a new truck every 10 years. Sorry. The fire chief, it's not something they do every day. So when I'm a fire chief, you put yourself in their mind, in their shoes, and what they're thinking about. They have to do the research because they have to retrain themselves how to do this every time. And, because they're only doing this once every 10 years. So every time they're doing it, they need to learn about the new technologies, the new features that are available. They have to almost reteach themselves how to write and submit an RFP so that they can get this quoted out, because the last thing they want to do is spend $1 million of their community's money and it be a bad decision. So in this case, we looked at fire truck manufacturing. Well, there's big multinationals, the very competitive space, not by a lot of competitors, but by some big players. But what we found is when people searched how to write an RFP for a fire truck, nobody was competing for that phrase. So we went in and said, well, the number one fear of a fire chief is making the wrong decision. So why don't we put out some content, write some white papers, create some how-to guides on how to create an RFP, and let's advertise that. And they're almost the only one doing this. The keyword, the cost, the competitiveness is very, very low. So the cost is very low. So their dollar can go a long way. And they're getting people from, even outside the areas that we're targeting that are coming to them for these resources, even beyond the markets that they can even serve. But they're becoming even through organic searches, but it started with paid searches. It's now, because they've been doing it a long time, it's now transitioned to a lot of organic searches where they're not paying for the clicks, where fire chiefs are coming to them from fire stations across North America, across the world, even in England and Australia, and using them. And we're positioning them as a resource to teach fire chiefs how to buy a fire truck and make the right decision. But again, it's thinking of it creatively. Instead of, most people would say, okay, fire chiefs need to buy a fire truck. We want to buy the keyword, fire engine, fire truck, truck manufacturing, all these things. Yeah. But when you really research it, how to write an RFP for a fire engine was actually searched almost as much as the other ones, but no competition.
Wow.
Because you're putting yourself in the mind of your potential customer. So think about what they're thinking. Try to figure out what they're thinking about and what's going on through their mind, what they're looking for and what their worries are. If you get to the fears and you can address that takes away fear of making a purchasing decision.
What do you think about surveying past customers, past clients? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that gives you really good, 100% agree that it's a good strategy. And understanding, I love to ask everyone in their sales, when you get a new call or a new inquiry from a potential client, always ask them, how'd you hear about us?
Yeah, great.
Always find that out, because if you don't, that's a huge missed opportunity, because people will say it's fresh in their mind and they'll say, oh, I searched on Google and I saw your name pop up. Well, what did you search? And just make a note of it. Keep track of that stuff. The challenge is with going back to past clients. I love the idea, but a lot of people will say, if you ask them a month later, 6 months later, how'd you hear about us? I don't remember. I don't remember what I searched, but I think I searched online and I found you guys. I don't remember what I searched, but if you ask them right there in the moment and say, Scott, great to meet you. My name is Andy. I'm with Tulip Media. Before we get started, how'd you hear about us? How'd you find us? And that'll give you amazing insight, because you can get specifics and you can learn some of the keywords that other people might be using. And we've learned for ourselves often, wow, okay, that's interesting. I didn't realize that people were even looking at it that way or thinking about it that way.
That's interesting, Andy. And I appreciate you talking about that story with the fire engine company. I remember reading about that in your book. I thought it was pretty interesting that you mentioned that. Yeah. Let me bring things to a close here. If we could summarize 3 action steps to give people to get started on what we talked about today, what would those 3 action steps be, Andy?
Well, first, you do want to research the competition. Take the time to look at your competitors, look at their websites, because we talked about ways to get people onto your website. There's the second half of that strategy is, how do you get them to convert, meaning taking the action that you want them to take and reaching out to you. But research your competitors, look at their websites, look at how their websites flow, the messaging they're using, and then leveraging something like SEMrush or one of those online platforms, or work with an agency to figure this out. But figure out, it's not just enough to know why people are going onto your website or why they're not. You want to know why they're going onto your competitors and why they're not. And there's going to be some strategies you can implement. So research your competitors. Don't be afraid to think outside the box. Step number 2, think of it from different angles and ask yourself, if you had no limitations or there's no restrictions on you, how would you come at this from a different angle? What are different terms you might want to search? What are, do you want to buy your competitors' names as a keyword strategy? And really just think outside the box. And then, Scott, step number 3 is one that, I know we didn't have time to dive into today, but when you get them on your website, you have to have a good conversion strategy. So the messaging, there's a whole process behind it. There's a bit of a science, but does your website pass a grunt test? Meaning in 3 seconds, if I land on your homepage, you either hook me to continue or I'm off. So in 3 seconds, do I know what you do and how you might be able to help me? And then do you touch on what the benefits are, what the fears are, or what the problem is that, I might be facing? In other words, the fire chief, how not to, I'll tell you, the number 1 white paper is really close at the top of their page on their homepage, is the 6 mistakes that fire chiefs make when purchasing a new fire engine. That has been downloaded tens of thousands of times.
Wow.
And so, talk to the fears. But the other big mistake is just that. A lot of digital marketers will say, we'll increase your website traffic by 5 times. My opinion, honestly, with Tulip Media, I don't care if our website traffic drops in half. What I care about is how many times their phone ring, how many people fill out an inquiry form, and how many people book meetings in our calendars because they want to learn more about what we do.
That's great, Andy.
That conversion strategy on the website is really, really key. Make that your 3rd step.
Well, I appreciate you coming on here and sharing real substantive ideas and action steps that people can take. And I'd be willing to bet they'll see a big improvement. Tell us about Tulip Media. What is it that you do? What is it that you can help people, and things that you'd like our listeners to know about, Andy?
Sure. Well, Tulip Media, it's about 10 years old, and we've been working with client partners on 2 different streams. One is the digital marketing, like we talked about, which we start with putting together the proper online pay-per-click marketing program, along with a conversion strategy for the website. So we don't build websites, but we will provide your website developer with the messaging and the flow. We'll help folks with their digital marketing strategy. And then the other thing that we do that's very unique, and it's actually it's still our biggest part of the business, we do custom publishing. We do custom magazines. Actually, I have one right in front of me here, just happen to have one from a law firm, but we do customized publishing to really set yourself above your competitors in the marketplace and really raise your brand and your brand awareness in the marketplace.
That's fantastic, Andy. We're going to put, for everybody listening, the links to reach out to Andy, to learn more about him on the website. I'm also going to put the link to buy his book, Double Sales, Zero Salespeople, a book I'd highly recommend. Andy, thank you for being on the show, and I'd love to have you back on in the future. Great job today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Rainmaking Podcast. For more information about our recruiting services for international law firms, visit our website at attorneysearchgroup.com. To inquire about having Scott speak at your next convention, conference, sales meeting, or executive retreat, visit therainmakingpodcast.com.